I'm back on the air. Jessi's back at the X. All seems right in the hockey world. We've got news from both the NHL and the NWHL, plus badass Hayley Moore joins us to talk about her new role in the AHL. That and more in episode 57.
Pay homage to the Met Center, Metrodome, Fogarty, or your favorite former Viking. What's up, Randy Moss Mooning? With any of Soda 6 Classics throwback tees. Looking to sip on a different flavor? Check out the McGolden Light Pond Hockey and Fishing Club merch line for that extra Minnesota flavor. Toss down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all purchases at sodastick.com. Hello, everybody. We're back. Episode 57 coming in hot. Alexis, what do you want to start with? We have so much that we could talk about. We've got NWHL kicking off. NHL, is in the midst of things. They're coming back home. The Wild have their own home opener today while we're recording. They've got quite a few home games in the process. Where do you want to dive into first?
I just got to say, I don't know if I've been more excited in the last 10 months to look at our rundown for the show than I was looking at the one for today, because we do have so much to talk about. Let's do Wild first, because their game, we're recording this on a Friday. They're playing tonight. Whitecaps don't play until Saturday. So let's get the NHL stuff out of the way and then talk about the NWHL.
And then let the ladies really just take over.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. Yes. Again, we are recording this on Friday before the Minnesota Wild have their home opener against the San Jose Sharks. Mr. Devin Dubnyk getting the start, ironically, in the home opener, which would be his sixth consecutive start for a Minnesota Wild home opener. This time, he's in the Sharks net, so that should be interesting. Alexis, what have you thought about the Wild so far in this early season? I mean, they obviously grabbed a huge 6 points of 8 possible on their road trip through Cali, and the road was not kind to them last year, so it's good to see that start happening.
Yeah, there's, a lot of good things I've seen over the course of these handful of games at the start of the season here, but also some things that, it's like, okay, they could definitely work on this, and things that I think could be pretty easy improvements. But I think it's just, one of the biggest things is I can see there's a lot of talent on this team, right? You look at the guys who go on the ice who are making the plays, and you see the way some of these goals have been scored, the come from behind wins that they've had. You could tell that they've got talent. But there's little things like the second period collapses they've been having. It's like, you got to fix that. You can't do that all season. Sure, come from behind wins, they're fun to watch them, fun to talk about them. But to do that time and time again is exhausting. And
your magic runs out after a while, right?
I'm sorry, but you can't keep tempting fate. Eventually you got to get a lead. Even the last game against the Ducks before the Sharks series, they get that lead and then they have a second period collapse, and we need late game heroics for that to come out on top for the Wild. So little things like that, where it's like, I'm optimistic that the roster is looking good. I like what I've seen from the guys on the roster, but little things here and there that could be fixed to make them just an overall better team. I will say the one thing that I'm a little concerned about at this point, which I don't know how easily this is of a fix, but the goaltending to me has not been as good as I was hoping it would be. And I'm talking about Talbot and Kakkonen. I mean, both of them, they've had, Kakkonen we've only seen once so far, and Talbot's gotten 3 starts. Talbot's played okay. I mean, I wouldn't say he's played horribly, but there's definitely been some things he's done where I'm like, oh, I wish that he would have done that differently. I wasn't impressed with Kakkonen's start against the Ducks. So the goaltending position to me scares me a little bit right now, but I know it's still early, and I'm optimistic that things will improve over the course of the season.
I will say I was most impressed with Talbot, ironically, in the loss against the Ducks. I thought he played phenomenal. I thought he really did, very well. And
he gave them a chance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're right. It's early, and I think everyone's still feeling everything out, right? So I'm eager to see how that changes while they're back home here at home, how much more we can see of Kakkonen. Again, Cam Talbot was brought here to be a starter, so he will get the lion's share, but I still want to see more of Kakkonen. On that same note, just for an update, no Alex Stalock update at all. He remains on the COVID-19 list with protocols, but that doesn't mean he has COVID necessarily. It's just, there's a whole long list. So anxious to see him get back in between the pipes as well. One thing that I have noticed, and this is not going to be a slight, so before you guys eat me alive, I would like to see Kirill Kaprizov shoot the puck more, right? And take the shot. He's always kind of looking sometimes, I think, for that fancy pretty play and that fancy pretty pass, which lucky for us, he can accomplish it most of the time, right? Like he usually completes the pass, where in the past we've seen Wild players try it and it fails, right? So at least there's that. But I know, and my husband's going to love this, because every game we've watched, he's like, God, why doesn't he shoot? And he's absolutely right. I mean, he's touted as this amazing goal scorer, and we've seen that capability, but he's shying away from some of those shots, or on the power play opportunity too. It's like, let's see a little bit more of the shooting aspect, not just the playmaking aspect. Again, both great qualities, but I'd like to see him shoot a little bit more, I think is a big thing. Also, I'd like to see the lines jumbled. Right now, the bottom 6 are performing the best out
Where's
of
Bruce when we
Wild.
need him?
Yeah, like
Bruce will jumble at mid games. First period, one thing goes wrong, shoot, everyone's on a different line.
I am a huge fan of consistency. Don't get me wrong, especially when I have to do the lines for every preview and every game. But at the same time, like, let's see something different. Again, we have you've got very mediocre lines across the board. Why not put one superstar line together with Fiala and Gigue? I think Joel Eriksson Ek is really proving himself as a strong centerman. He's looked really good. Jordan Greenway's looked very good. Again, that bottom 6 outperforming your top six, which sure, you can look at the depth of it, but that's not what you want. You want your top line.
It's okay from time to time, but over the course of a season, that your recipe is wrong if that's what you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. So again, we will see there's plenty of home ice here happening. Shout out to the XL Energy Center in the Minnesota Wild for putting the high school jerseys in the stands. In case you guys hadn't seen photos of that, it looks awesome. It is very Minnesota, very state of hockey.
That was my
right?
first thought. I was like, only in Minnesota would we put high school hockey jerseys in the stands. But
yes.
I like it. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's pretty awesome. Speaking of being very Minnesota, I do want to bring this up because I find it so funny. The same team, aka the Minnesota Wild, who decided that they wanted to just wear polos into the bubble, has also decided that they don't want to have each player select a goal song. Instead,
which is what they were originally going to do.
Right. Which is what the NHL is allowing this year. You know, again, allowing some personality to shine, allowing some of this, and the Wild are like, we're good. I mean, Alexis, what are your thoughts on that? Like, would you, I would have loved to see every single, whether that goes from country to rock to pop to rap, whatever. Like, I think each player should have their own goal song, kind of like baseball. You've got your walk-up song, like, Joe Mauer, what you know about that? Like, go with it. I think it'd be fun, but the Wilds went a little vanilla on me once again.
I will say I have 2 comments. One, I love that the whole polo incident has not died yet, and it's been months
since
never
that's
forget. Happened. Second of all, I do think that it would be cool, right? And I think the NHL always gets knocked for like not the players not having these big personalities, outside of the sport, right? You see like, people in the NBA, people in the NFL, like they're big personalities on Twitter and kind of in interviews and stuff like that. And the NHL gets knocked for being very vanilla a lot of the time, which is, I think, a fair statement from people to make. And so they get this opportunity to do something different, something unique, and the Wild don't take it. On the flip side of it, though, I also think there's like, it doesn't matter that much, right? Like, it's a goal song. Like, in the grand scheme of things, what does it really have to do with the overall course of the season? Could it add a little bit of, more fun for fans watching at home to hear these goal songs and whatnot? Sure. But is it going to affect the overall, outcome of the season? Probably not. But it's classic Wild to just opt out of that. I will say that.
What's your prediction? What do you think they go with? Are we going to see crowd chant come back?
If they go with by Usher, I'd be happy.
I love crowd chant.
Good. Crowd chant is great.
My husband and I walked into our like entrance to our wedding to that song with like hockey jerseys on. Great song. Fred, what do you think it's going to be? What's the goal song the Wild are going to go with? You've been around this team. You know their likes and dislikes a little bit. What do you think they do?
If Ryan Suter's still one of the captains, he's going to pick a country song, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
If you're a country fan, you'll be fine. But if you're not, it's going to be country.
I mean, and they did say that it'll be all of the veteran leaders who are weighing in on,
if Matt Dumba has the aux cord, it would be fun. If like Zach Parise, no offense to him, if he has the aux cord, I don't know if the goal song is going to be that exciting.
I don't know, maybe Zach goes with like a Rolling Stones, right? Or
that would be kind of cool. I'd be down for that. Well, and for those who don't know, Matt Dumba is the one. Well, yeah, and Matt Dumba is the one who makes the pregame warm-up mix, so I would trust him with picking the goal song.
And I have to say, the pregame warm-up mix that they had during the scrimmages, I'm not sure if the viewers at home could hear that at all via the live stream. It was all over the board, and I was very like, taken aback on some of the songs. I was like,
they're trying to appeal
wow.
to every different kind of fan there is.
I mean, I was a big fan of all the TikTok songs, like, 'cause I forget those are songs in real life, but I definitely
what came first, the song or the TikTok?
Yeah, exactly. No, so I'm anxious to see. Hopefully, we hear a lot of that goal song starting tonight when they face the San Jose Sharks. One more bit of NHL news that I want to touch on is the Washington Capitals and their $100,000 fine for COVID violations, which, as we discovered, was the Russians on the team. My fantasy hockey team taking a big hit with Alex Ovechkin sitting out for 4 games, as will the Washington Capitals, obviously. I'm mixed on this in general, right? Because it's a tough situation. Normally you're allowed to hang out with your teammates, and you know what they were doing was hanging out in hotel rooms together, whether that's playing games or just chit-chatting, stuff that you would normally do on the road. Again, with everything having to be so stringent and so locked down. I mean, there are extra protocols in place for a reason, for the safety, so you're not postponing and canceling games. And the NHL making a very loud statement with the $100,000 fine to the Washington Capitals. But Alexis, how do you feel about not being able to hang out with teammates in your rooms, essentially on the road?
I feel really mixed about it because, I mean, as a human being, I look at it and I think, man, that really stinks. Like, we've all been through that too, right? Like with lockdowns, and I can't see this person, I can't see that person. And, you can't, hug people when you go see them. I mean, everything for everyone has been different. So I really, on that level, it's like we can all relate to that. We've all had to make sacrifices in one way, shape, or form for some period of time. So I do really feel bad for them that, especially when it comes to pro sports and any high level of sports, really. I mean, you commit so much of your time to the season and you're around these same people over and over again, and you're away from your families and you're away from your friends. And, you really do, that you rely on that friendship and that camaraderie to get through the season. And I think it helps build stronger teams when the teams are friends off ice and doing things off ice together. And so in that aspect, I really feel for them. But at the same time, we do have to make these sacrifices. I want the season to go off safely. I want players to get through the season safely. I don't want there to be issues with people getting sick or things getting canceled. So if that means that the sacrifices have to be made, it really stinks. But I want people to do this safely. And I will applaud the NHL. However you feel about the regulations they've set in place for the season, I will applaud them for making a statement right off the bat here. As simple as it sounds, like, oh, there's a couple guys hanging out in the hotel room, that goes against the regulations they set for the season. So good on them for not, backing down from that.
And that's one of their babies too, right? Yes. Washington Capitals is one of their
They don't care who you
children.
Are. Yep. So I will applaud them in that aspect, but it does really stink.
No, again, and again, you could talk in circles about this because everyone has an opinion on it, and there certainly is. Well, what? So you can shower together, you can be on the bench together, you can be in a locker room together, but you can't be in a hotel. And it's absolutely right. It's kind of crazy, but like Alexis said, those are the rules, and
they're not doing it to punish them, right? They're not making these rules because like they don't want them to have fun or they don't want them to bond. It just, they're doing the best they can, right? They have to be on the bench.
You have to try to control all the variables that you can in order to prevent the uncontrollable. So, I think it's tough. So I'm interested to see how it does change. I mean, if there are more teams that this happens to, or if more people lock it down tighter, again, I think most folks are taking it seriously. And not that the Capitals didn't, not that those guys weren't taking this seriously by any means. I don't want to like throw them under the bus for that, but it's normalcy to hang out with your teammates. And I'm sure it's a very different situation, especially since in the bubble, they were allowed to do that because in the bubble, everything was controlled.
Not only with each other, but with other teams. I mean, everyone could hang out with each other. It was a lot different situation than this season. Yeah. Yeah.
No, exactly. I mean, we're all going through extra steps. I know for myself to go to the X, obviously we are 6 feet apart up in the press box. So that makes very limited seating, as if you will. We have to get our test every day. Again, not complaining, but I have to wear my mask the whole time I'm there as well. So it's just part of what we have to do in order to get things moving forward. So that applies to everybody involved from top to bottom, I guess. Since I'm at the X, which I'm loving and freaking excited about, Alexis, you came out with some pretty exciting news this week. You are going to Florida, which how did you guys swing Florida as being the place to broadcast? Like, if I had known we could talk about that, I would have been on the horn with the NHL. Like, hey, I think I should be reporting all these games remotely from Florida. But you'll be a part of the NWHL broadcast. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit more about that and what we can expect from the ladies as the bubble begins this weekend.
Yeah. So I can't believe that the season is already here. I mean, it's by the time you guys are listening to this, we'll have at least a few days of NWHL hockey under our belt for the season as they report to Lake Placid and start their games on January 23rd, which is this past Saturday. And yeah, so I will be heading down to Florida on Wednesday of the week this episode comes out and staying through the weekend to broadcast. I think I'm doing 7 games over the course of that time. They've got everything grouped in double headers and triple headers, which makes it easy to to go down there for only a couple games or a couple days. Yeah. And still cover a ton of games. So I'm super excited about it because, once I knew that they were doing the bubble season, I didn't know what that meant for me as a broadcaster in the NWHL, if I was going to be sitting out the season, if they were going to need my services in some other way, shape, or form. And so many of you kept asking, are you going to Lake Placid? Are you going to Lake Placid? No, I'm not, but I am going to Florida and I will be broadcasting the games.
Which sounds a little
there.
better, if I must be honest.
I mean, I will say I've never been to Lake Placid, so that would have been a really fun experience. But I mean, a weekend in Florida in the middle of January in Minnesota, I mean, hey, I'll take it. So
still
it's going to be very
and
exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it'll be a fun week. I'm sure the 2 weeks are going to fly by. But for those who haven't seen yet or are wondering, all the games will be streamed on Twitch. So that's where you can find all of them. Not even just the Whitecaps games, all of the games for the season. So you
are they
can
free or do we
have
to pay?
You do not have to pay to watch them. You can. There is ways that you can kind of throw money out there, and that money goes to the teams and stuff, but to watch it, you don't have to pay anything. So all of those games will be on there. And then the last 3 games of the season, the 2 semifinal games and the final on February 4th and 5th will be on NBCSN, which we've kind of talked about already, but make sure you go watch that, get those viewership numbers up so that people know how important getting women's hockey on national television is. So yeah, it is going to be a very fun week. I'm very excited. I think this is the busiest I've been since the shutdown, which it feels so good to have so much work to do from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. I forgot what it felt like to work this much. So I
never thought I'd missed like 16-hour days, right?
I was like, I looked at my calendar. 75 calls today and I have to do 4 hours of research. This feels really refreshing. I'm glad to be working. So yes, check out those games. The Whitecaps brought back a lot of familiar names that made them how good they were last year. So I anticipate they'll have another good season. Hopefully a chance to win their second Isabel Cup in team history. So we'll see how that goes.
We're going to use this as my favorite part, a segue. To talk more NWHL. Our guest Hayley Moore joins us. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Hayley and NWHL chat. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, this is producer Fred. Gentlemen, I want to take a moment and talk about your hedges, about your rough, your fairway, your greens, your front lawn, and backyard. Is it manicured enough to improve your overall curb appeal? Well, we want to introduce you to our new partner, Manscaped. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. They just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0, waterproof for shower trimming, a premium battery and charging station. Manscaped has you and your sensitive areas covered. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use code BEAUTS at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping when you use code BEAUTS. That's BEAUTS at checkout.
Joining us now, another leading lady shattering glass ceilings and reminding us all what badasses women are. Current president of the NWHL's Boston Pride, recently named the VP of Hockey Operations in the American Hockey League. Hayley Moore. Hayley, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Jessi. Happy to be here.
Hey, thanks for hopping on. I mean, again, just an all-around badass. If I had to list the accolades, like people would be shocked for man or woman.
We'd be here all week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've done so much. And I know I had read Emily Kaplan's story on ESPN about you recently, and she had mentioned you didn't really see a career in hockey being a thing, right? I mean, when you were growing up, what did that look like? You and I are about the same age. So was it kind of the Olympic dream as a player, but beyond that, that's kind of where you thought it might stop?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely didn't see a career in hockey outside of playing for so long. And, as a kid, like you just enjoy playing the game anyway. So I remember, being young and asking my parents what I was going to move on to in hockey, where was my pro league? And I remember asking those questions and they would just reassure me and tell me that by the time I was that age that there would be something there for me. And there really wasn't. So I wanted to be a part of creating that. And then that, opened the doors for me to kind of expand my career outside of playing hockey.
Well, and once you are done playing hockey, you've now moved into this role. This role has, it exists now, whether it did or not when you were younger. And not only are you in a big role, but you're in a big role with a really good hockey team in the Boston Pride. You guys have been a pretty dominant team the last 2 seasons. I'm the broadcaster for the Whitecaps, and I know those 2 teams have been butting heads all of last season.
Well, we won't hold it against you, Hayley, that you are with the Boston Pride, because as the Whitecaps over here, obviously that's a strong battle there.
So
I know I was a little worried. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we won't. Don't worry. We're all on friendly terms for now. Season hasn't started just yet. But yeah, last year, especially you guys had such a good season and made it to that final game. And obviously the game didn't get to happen because of the coronavirus. But just talk about, being in charge of a really good hockey team. I mean, that's got to be fun to come to work every day and see kind of what your team is doing and to know that you're a part of that.
It's so much fun. And I've just, been really lucky to be a part of so many amazing hockey teams over the course of my life. And I feel like the NWHL is a team in itself. And, to be a part of this league, I just feel like I'm a part of a really great team here. But obviously, working with the Pride, in the first 2 seasons of the league and now these past 2 seasons in a different capacity, like it's just been so much fun. It's been unbelievable to see the growth, but our players are so passionate. They're so skilled. They're humble. Our fans are amazing here in Boston. I couldn't ask to work for a better organization. And I'm just so proud to be able to represent this team. And hopefully we'll be coming back with some hardware. I know you guys want to go to Minnesota, but we're super excited about the season ahead. And I've just been so fortunate to work with some really great people here in Boston.
And it's got to be extra special because you're doing it at home, right? I mean, you get to have your family and friends there support you in this capacity, like I'm sure they did while you were a player. I mean, how neat is that to do it in the state and the town that you call home?
Very cool, yes. And like I mentioned, I didn't have this team to look up to as a younger kid, so it really means a lot to me to see the young girls in the stands that get to show up and come watch our games and have these women to aspire to be like.
Well, Hayley, you said that you're hoping to bring home hardware, and funny enough, I was just on a podcast earlier this week and I was asked to predict what I thought was going to happen this season. And I said, the Pride and Whitecaps are going back to that final game, but I said the Pride are going to win. I don't think the Whitecaps are going to catch them slipping twice. I know. I predicted an overtime final game win by the Boston Pride. So I agree. I think they
Sorry,
might
Whitecaps fans, your own broadcaster is going against you.
But I got to ask, what are you most excited about for this bubble season? Obviously a unique season here, a condensed season. It's probably going to fly by in the blink of an eye. But what are you most looking forward to as the season starts this week?
Yeah, I don't hate that prediction, not gonna lie. But we're really just so psyched to play some hockey games. It has been a grind. You mentioned our championship game getting canceled last March, and we haven't played a hockey game since. So it's going to look very different. And like you said, it's going to go by in a blink of an eye. So we're just looking to soak in every moment, take one game at a time, not expect anything and just really work for it. So that's the way that we're kind of approaching it. And, so excited for these players to have the platform in Lake Placid and, and great broadcasting partners in Twitch and NBC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited for more eyes to be on this product and, really just most excited to play some hockey games.
And it'll be kind of a whirlwind for you, right? Because once the NWHL season goes, you move on to the AHL with their season ramping up. Tell me about, what that interview process was like for you to go for that job. I mean, you've obviously aspired to always reach that next level and have done so, but how exciting is it then to now transition from one phenomenal league to another phenomenal league in the AHL?
Yeah, I'm going to have to flip that switch pretty quickly. And I've already promised the folks out in Springfield in the AHL office that if we do bring home that cup, that I'll be sure to bring it with me and bring some of that good luck and well wishes into the start of the AHL season. But I'm so excited. And the interview process was a long one. And the more I learned about it and the role, the more I realized it was a really great fit for me in the next step in my career. I actually started the process in August. So it was about a 5-month process. And, with all of the uncertainties around sports in general and at the start of these seasons here, it was a little bit of an unknown process in that sense as well. But like I said, the more I learned about the role and how it aligned with my experience, I realized it was a really great fit for me. So I kind of went into it with an open mind and, was excited to learn more. And really it aligned with everything that, I was striving to achieve in the next step of my career. And I'm so excited to move on, but not before we cap things off here with the pride and hopefully in a good way.
Absolutely.
One step at a time, that's for sure. But a question that I get asked a lot, I'm sure Jessi does as well. And I always, it really makes me think about kind of, what we go through as women in sports and in sports media or in sports, these big roles behind the scenes. And something that people ask a lot is, do you realize like what you're doing? Do you realize you're paving the way, that you're breaking these glass ceilings? I mean, and it doesn't, I know me personally, it's not always at the forefront of my mind because to me, it's just work. Do you kind of have that same mindset, or when does it really sink in that, hey, I'm doing like something really cool here that's going to go down in history?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys know it just as well, but I think that we're all just following our passion. We're just doing the work that excites us. And, it doesn't mean that I don't recognize, what's being done in the process, but we're just kind of following our hearts and following our intuition there. And, there's just, no disconnect, I think, in us just trying to follow that lead of our hearts. And, I'm hopeful that more girls and more young girls will see our paths and see that this is an option for them. But just really excited to be continuing that passion in a new way.
I remember Blake Bolden had said it best. She was like, I didn't realize until I was standing up here that I'm all alone. You don't take that time to recognize that you are doing this. I mean, in so many ways, like you had mentioned, when you were a kid, you didn't have a league to look up to. You found a home in the CWHL for a little bit. How excited were you just when the NWHL came onto the scene, and how easy of a decision was that for you to kind of move and see what might be there for you as a career opportunity?
It was the easiest decision I think I've ever made, honestly. And at the point, I really didn't even know what I was getting into. I didn't know what this league was going to be capable of. And, Danny presented the idea to me before the league launched, and she reached out and kind of shared with me her idea for this league. And I saw an opportunity to build with her, and her vision was just so great. And that was something that I knew I wanted to be a part of. So I basically just said, sign me up, let me know how I can help. I want to be a part of this solution with you. And the rest is history, I guess. I just can't believe how far we've come and how big that vision actually was. But it was very easy to just jump on in, and, it's been a blessing ever since.
How important do you find it as a female working in this industry to have avenues in both the women's game and the men's game? I think that's something that often, doesn't get talked about too much, but typically we all start in one of them and then somehow we find our ways into other avenues as well. And I think it's really important that, as women, we help grow the women's game, but also find ways into those roles in the men's leagues that sometimes that have historically not been filled by women. How do you kind of view that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and something that I even kind of needed to ask myself these questions along the way, because, we're so passionate about building the women's game. I'm so passionate about building the women's game. I don't think I had really envisioned a career outside of that for a long time. And, as things progress, you just realize that we do need to kind of blur those lines more. And you are still building the women's game, even if you are working in a men's league. And that's something that I really kind of had to do some soul searching myself and kind of going through this process. But, I recognize that opportunity for women in the sport of hockey should happen everywhere. And it shouldn't be just in a women's league or just in a men's league or just in youth sports or college or whatever. It should be everywhere. And that's something that, I want to continue to push the envelope on. Hopefully we just look at roles across the board, and it's men and women everywhere. It doesn't matter. If you're somebody who's passionate and qualified, then you're there for the job.
The job's there. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that speaks to, it has to be a collaborative effort on every single front. So it can't just be women growing the women's game, right? You need the men to step in, and you need men to also say, hey, we support this. And, I think the NHL has obviously taken some baby steps. I think they could be larger steps, but baby steps, and seeing the NWHL broadcast on NBC is going to be a huge step as well. And in the same way, I think men need to show some more support to women in the sports, this week, Jared Porter and news came out about sexual harassment. I mean, what would you say, how do men and women each other show support for women in sports so there are more opportunities and more doors open? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think that, as you mentioned, just some of the recent hirings is one way to kind of accomplish that. But, really, I find that the more conversations I have, the more mutual respect there actually is that, people don't necessarily see, because you don't see as many, women in these traditionally men's roles. But really, when you have a coaching conversation between, a men's and women's coach, like, they'll hit it off right away.
Mhm.
Or, you talk, male and female broadcasters or referees or in any capacity, there's just there is a mutual respect. And I think the more we can have those conversations, the more that's going to just kind of tear down that wall and kind of understand that we're all kind of working in the same avenue here. We're just, in different places sometimes. That hopefully that gap continues to be bridged. But it's definitely something that I learned throughout my process in the interview process with the AHL, and just having those conversations, like the day-to-day work that we do across these different leagues, it really does not differ. The challenges that we face, while they may be different in some capacities, they're very, very similar. So, I think the more of those conversations that are had, the more we'll all continue to bridge the gap.
And I think, to your point, at the end of the day, we're all doing this because we're passionate about it. Whether you're a player, whether you're in the media, behind the scenes, everybody is doing this because it's something we love. So as someone who's played the sport and now has worked behind the scenes in the sport, with your new role with the AHL, what are you most excited to bring to that role and to do with this passion and knowledge that you have for the sport of hockey?
Yeah, I'm really excited to just kind of share the versatility that I've learned in our league. We wear so many different hats, and I've been so lucky to be a part of the starting and building and growth of a hockey league from scratch. And I think that has provided me with a really unique perspective. Working both at the league and team levels, I've gotten an understanding for how that communication needs to work. So I'm really excited to bring that to the table. I think it's unique. And I think that, as women in a startup business and in a women's sports in general, like, we have to learn to be really creative and intuitive and flexible. So, those are things that I'm definitely excited to bring to the table. But I'm so excited, to learn and to also be, a part of this great development league. I love that about the AHL, and that, this is a stepping stone, and that this is an opportunity for growth. And that's an area where I really like to work.
And how you kind of touched on it there, how confident are you in leaving the NWHL? It's obviously got to be bittersweet because you've been there since the beginning, but you can see that they haven't even reached that threshold, right? They're just going to continue to grow and grow. How excited are you to see where it's come and where it's going to go in the future?
Yeah, it's definitely emotional, and I've been able to kind of reflect on it quite a bit recently, but I'm just so proud of the work that's been done in these past 6 years. I'm so proud to have been a part of it. I can't wait to see what's next for the league. I know that, they're just going to continue to keep growing. I'm going to be the biggest fan from the outside now. And
you can cheer even harder now, right? As
exactly. Yeah. So I'll join those awesome, loyal fans in the stands. Absolutely. But I'm so excited to see what's next for them, but I'm also just really proud to have been a part of it, and excited to kind of spread my wings from there.
I know something we always love to ask when we have women on our podcast is that, we want to know, what do you think the future looks like for women in these roles? As someone who's now moving into two roles that weren't there before, that women didn't fill before, what does the scene look like in 5-10 years, or what are you hoping that it looks like?
And for women players too, right? As
Yeah.
the game itself continues to go kind of in all aspects. What do you see?
Yeah, I think that, when we looked at the emergence of our league initially, people just saw the amount of opportunity that was created on the ice for these players. And I certainly hope that more teams within the NWHL continue to emerge, and that, those opportunities both on and off the ice continue to happen. But, across all leagues, whether it's men's, women's sports, college athletics, professional sports, I just hope that we continue to see men and women in all of these roles. Obviously, to continue to provide the experience and the platform for women to be encouraged and empowered to take on these roles. That's a huge part of it, and something that I think the NWHL has really provided to me, both the experience and the empowerment. And I think the more that women can support each other and try to push each other along, that's when we're going to get there. So I'm super excited to see, just where sports in general are in 5 to 10 years, and seeing more women in these leadership positions, because it's only going to continue to grow, especially if we lift each other up and put each other in positions to succeed.
What are some other pieces of advice you have for young girls what are some steps that they should take in order to maybe follow in your footsteps or to find themselves in roles? Because like I think you'd mentioned, a lot of these opportunities just kind of came about, right? And you leapt at it with complete confidence. But are there any certain things that young girls should be doing in order to prepare themselves for a possibility of a position like this?
Yeah, I just think never be afraid to take a chance and, follow your heart. Like that's really what's led me to where I am, but I've pushed myself into some really uncomfortable positions and that's okay. And I think that I've been able to do that because I've had support around me. So, I would just say to never be afraid to take a chance, but also make sure that you are, finding support in your teammates beside you, in whatever role you're in. That's where you find your strength and your empowerment. But, follow your passion, and that will lead you and, to wherever you want to go.
Go get it, girls.
My last question is just, what have you learned about yourself throughout this whole process? As someone who you said as a kid, you knew, you looked and you saw that, okay, there's no roles here for someone like me. How am I going to do this? What is the next step? And then you get into these roles. And now you've even taken the next step after that. As you reflect on kind of your journey from kid to player to, behind the scenes with hockey, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself as a person?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of the time you don't necessarily see yourself the same way other people see you, for most of us, I'm sure. And you don't even really recognize it. But, every once in a while you have to try to step outside yourself and reflect a little bit. But, I think that I have really recognized that, for me, being able to just really be passionate about what I do is what will continue to fuel me. I feel like the work the past 6 years, especially in the NWHL, has shown me how resilient I can be. And, that leadership it comes in many different ways, and that, you don't need to lead like anyone else. You can just lead like yourself. And that's really important. And I think that just the relationships that I've built along the way, I've recognized that that's, what's so meaningful to me in my career is to let other people in and to continue to learn from everyone around me. So I've definitely been really lucky to be surrounded by some great people, but it definitely, letting my passion fuel me, let others in and be willing to lean on the people around you. And, that just kind of has led me down the path to wanting to continue to challenge myself in my career.
So what's next? I mean, that's the big question, right? You say you check off the AHL, that's next. What would be the next job for Hayley?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think I'm, focus on the Isabel Cup first, and then
yeah, she's got a lot on her plate, Jessi. Come on.
Yeah, I'm trying not to look too far ahead right now, and I don't think I've ever really looked far ahead in my career at all. I've just, taken each step as it comes, and I'm never shy away from a challenge. I love that, and I think it's what just continues to drive me and my career forward. But I just want to enjoy where I'm at and continue to learn. So I'm excited to turn the page and take this next step with the AHL, but not trying to look too far ahead of that.
Well, wherever you go after this, you got our support already, but whatever the next step is, we'll be cheering you on for that one too.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Yes, I will be cheering you on in everything except the Isabel Cup. I will stand with the Whitecaps. I'm sorry.
I might need to take a step back for that one day. But
No. Well, thank you so much, Hayley, again for joining us. Best of luck in the bubble with the NWHL, and then best of luck with the AHL. We'll certainly have you back on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Calling all Beauts, our Bardown Beauties Teespring line has everything to help make you an official Beaut. Whether it's waking up with a hot cup of coffee from a Bardown Beauties mug, rocking our Land of 10,000 Beauts crew neck, or tossing an official logo on your water bottle, we want to make you an official part of our team. So support the Beauts with the purchase. Go buy something right now. Love you guys.
We're back. Thanks again to Hayley. Gosh, she's awesome. Like, I say that about every single guest, but I truly mean it. Like, I leave each conversation with everybody just like rejuvenated and like inspired and
we don't just say this
great.
Just for the podcast. Like, we'll go off air and be like, that was really cool, I love that person, or like, we need to have them back on. Like, we have we say it all the time, but we are so lucky with the people who we get to chat with on this podcast. I mean, so many cool people, and Hayley is just such a nice person and done so many cool things in her career, and I'm really excited to see what she does with the AHL, because I think she's got valuable skills to bring to the AHL, and well-deserved, really.
Exactly. No, congrats to her. So thanks to her for joining us. Now, segment 3 are up for debate with the Beauts. This week's question, who will be the leading scorer for the Minnesota Wild this season? We named defenseman Matt Dumba, forward Kevin Fiala, and forward Kirill Kaprizov. Alexis, what say you? Who is the leading? And I will say that there was obviously a large majority favoring Kaprizov, right? Yeah. Which, not surprising right now. He does lead the team with 5 points. Again, this is before the San Jose series. Kevin Fiala, also an equal amount of love. Not as much love for my man, Matt Dumba.
Yeah.
But Alexis, who you got?
Well, I will say this. I think that each of these 3 guys having a good season is crucial to the Wild and their success. I mean, I think that you need someone like Matt Dumba, who is coming off of, a bit of a tough year after an injury. You need him to have a good season this year. If he puts pucks in the back of the net in the process, that's awesome, and which that's what he was doing before he got injured. I don't think he needs to lead the team in goals for the Wild to have a good season. In fact, I would argue that if you have a defenseman leading the team in goals, again, you probably have a pretty bad recipe, because you should have your forwards doing that. But he needs to have a good season. Same with Kevin Fiala and Kirill Kaprizov. We saw what Fiala was doing at the end of last year before the shutdown. He needs to get back to that game and exceed that game as well. So we need a good season from him.
He
does,
too, right? Like
he hasn't scored yet, but he's looked good. He's been doing a lot of good things. And what I said in my tweet when we put out this post, I would love for any of these guys to be the leading scorer this year. But when have the Wild had a Calder contender on their team, right? Like, I want Kaprizov to win that. I want him to be awarded that trophy and that honor. And in order for him, I think to make a valid running in that, he needs to be a star on this Minnesota Wild roster. He needs to be up there at the top.
He needs to be a star in the stat column.
I mean, he's going up people like Alexis Lafreniere. I mean, that's going to be a tough one depending on what he does this season with the Rangers. So I would love for him to have that, just because, again, the Wild don't get this kind of excitement usually. So I want him to have a good season.
Like, the NHL talked about the Minnesota Wild last week, guys. Like,
it feels so
soak
good.
that in. Feel that. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's awesome. What were you thinking, Jessi?
I kind of went with Matt Dumba, and I obviously, like you had just mentioned, all 3 of them need to have, you want to see more than one player have put up 20 goals or more, right? Like, you need to see multiple people contribute. And that just doesn't seem to happen. But I think I'm seeing so much more confidence out of Matt Dumba this season than you did last year. And he admitted
he's hit 5 posts already this year? I mean, he's firing on me.
He's shooting, right? Yeah. And he had 13 goals, and he was on pace for a career high before that injury 2 years ago. And last year he was obviously held back with nervousness about that injury, and the injury in his arm hurt, he admitted in the offseason. So to see him backfiring on those cylinders, I want to see him be the leading goal scorer too. Why not? Let's toss it out there. Plus, you know me, I got to mix it up. So like, just for the sake of being
you always give
different.
me the floor first, so I always feel like you get the short end of the stick. You're like, well, geez, she picked the best option. Now I got to pick something else and make a case for it.
I mean, again, you can't be mad about any of them, right?
No,
because
you can't.
whoever's leading, and ideally that's more than 10 goals, right? Like, I think if I'm going to set the bar at 10, I know I said Kaprizov's getting 26, but let's see 10 goals from one player. And right now, Matt Dumba is leading in the goal column. He's got 2 goals.
That's why we threw him in there. We're like, hey, I mean, why not? He might finish as the leading goal scorer.
Exactly.
As well.
So, that's going to do it for this week's Up for Debate, this week's episode. Thanks again to Hayley Moore. Shout out to sodastick.com, our presenting sponsors. Shout out to Manscaped, keeping Fred's face and other areas, I'm sure, all fresh and clean. Sorry, Kelly. Shout out to Talk North for allowing us to be featured on there. And as always, always, shout out to all of you Beauts for tuning in, subscribing, listening to us anywhere, any way that you can. I saw a tweet of a gentleman listening to us while he was outside resurfacing his outdoor rink. So I love
Now
that
that's
great
Minnesotan.
intermission listening,
Yes.
guys. I think that's fantastic. So you guys are all awesome. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, share, give us some love. We'll be back with more hockey talk next week. Have a good one. Ah!